we live in a twilight world. So technically this is a part 2 video with me going over the illusion warfare report number 3 I did over in France. I wanted to make this a standalone video because this is, in my opinion, the most important stuff we're going to be talking about. The other video is quite good, but, you know, people these days don't have a very long attention span. And that last video, it was about half an hour and it felt like it was dragging on a bit. So I think what people do is they watch the first 20 minutes, they get bored because they've all got brain rot and then they don't watch it. So I wanted to make this a standalone video. So yeah, I'm going back over a boots on the ground report I did back in France with the civil unrest because of the pension reforms back in 2023. Not only is it the 2-year anniversary, which is a good reason to actually do like a backup documentary, because really what I should do, if I was a little bit more professional and so on, with every illusion warfare report, the actual thread, I should then do like a little documentary on YouTube and fill in the blanks where, or add some footage I might have missed out off the actual main thread there. So this is the thread in question. Go check it out on Twitter, or X as it's called now. But the reason, it's not just a 2-year anniversary, it's also currently kicking off over in Turkey. Yeah. And in my opinion, it's just Turkey's turn. Yeah. I think last year, Georgia, it was their turn. And obviously the year before that, it was France's turn. Also, we've had ones in between, haven't we? We had the UK riots. We had Dublin riots. What else? I mean, I think every kind of country in Europe has had some form of civil unrest going on. But I would say France, Georgia, and now Turkey are the ones that are really up there in regards to basically how much it's being pushed via the mainstream media more than anything. You know, if I was to go over there, and I would love to go over there, but, you know, I think this year is going to be a bit of a quiet year for me because economically I'm not doing so well. After 4 years of funding all of this stuff, it's kind of catching up with me. But I don't need to go there because I know from my time in Paris how this works and how they do it. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this video here. Oh, and also I'm going to give you a backstory of the whole opera terminology and how it ties into everything, man. It's kind of going to be a story of synchronicity, right? Because my whole thing of saying this world is an illusion, yeah? A deceptive, untrue perception of reality, that's an illusion. Or the Latin root word of illusion means to play, as in to play in the theatre, right? Or to play on a stage. All the world's a stage and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, man, like something very profound happened when I was in France that kind of, you know, I don't know, it's very meaningful, yeah? Well, we'll get into it in the video, but, you know, it was very, very kind of a holy shit moment for me. And, like, I don't know if it's synchronicity or me, you know, fucking with the Matrix and the Matrix fucks with me back and all that kind of stuff. But you'll see where the whole concept of the opera and the era of operations comes into everything. So let's go and start with that video that I showed you at the beginning of this, which was being pushed by the mainstream media. So here we are. This was the main bit of footage that was being pushed from that day, the 23rd of the 3rd, 2023, yeah? This is what was going everywhere on the mainstream media. Also, the alternative media were just as bad for pushing this video. And as you can see, there's a lot of things that are very off about this. Okay, firstly, the guy filming this, how is he not being hit by the riot police? How is he allowed to film so freely? How come the people throwing projectiles are not throwing them at this guy? Yeah, this, in my opinion, is all staged, choreographed theatrics, yeah? And this, we'll get to the location of this, wasn't near the actual genuine peaceful protest that was on the next road along. So as you can see, this is just ridiculous. I got a feeling not only are these NATO soldiers playing the role of riot police, the rioters are also NATO soldiers, and even these cameramen that are allowed to freely run around alongside them are also part of NATO. They're all NATO. Now, whether or not some of these people in the crowd are genuine Parisians or tourists that were just caught up in Paris that found themselves watching this kind of spectacle, I don't know. But perhaps a lot of these are also part of the rent-a-mob crowd. I mean, they could have even been added on later via AI. I don't know. We'll go back to the start. So, keep your eye out, okay, for this kiosk here. One of these little kind of tobacco shops that sells newspapers and sweets and cigarettes and that. Yeah. Look at the place over here. This scaffolding. Keep that in the back of your mind, the scaffolding here. Yeah. And also this place here, Lancel. This shop or whatever it is, yeah. It's all been boarded up, by the way. But the way these, I call them Gladio photographers, because they're Operation Gladio photographers are allowed to just kind of walk around next to the police, and the police are not even concerned about them whatsoever. It's obviously means they're part of the same group, yeah. Because in a real riot situation, the riot police would not let outsiders just tag along in their defensive position, right? But anyway, how many guys are here? I don't know, less than 20. How many rioters are there throwing stuff at them? Perhaps 5. They're off camera. So yet again, you don't need much when it comes to the amount of numbers, yeah? You don't need much at all. So we're talking like a transit-sized van. I don't know, maybe 10 transit-sized vans, 10 minibuses is all you'd need to get these guys in location to do their theatrics, yeah? So now let's go over to a map. Yeah, this is a map of Paris. So, the 23rd of March, year 23. 23. The biggest demonstration / protest in modern French history about the pension reforms. Now, if you're from France, you'll know what I'm about to say, how it goes down. Everyone meets up here. Yeah? Place de la Bastille. Bastille, we say for short. Everyone meets up here. You got to remember, you're talking like 100,000 people meeting up. So it's a good 3 hours of them all gathering here, and they're kind of rehearsing the songs they're going to sing. And by the way, the funny thing is this is actually organized by the unions. All of the French unions, worker unions throughout France, which are actually controlled by the government. So it's a bit kind of funny that this is supposedly an anti-government protest, march, demonstration, yet it's being paid for and funded by the government, really, when you think about it. I'll show you some of my footage in a second. But here's Place de la Bastille. Bastille, we say for short. And then what they do is they march down this one street here, very slow march, banging their drums, singing their songs. There's DJs, there's balloons, there's everything. They take a slow march down here. Yeah. And they basically end up in a place called Concorde. Place de la Concorde. Now, this is, for historic reasons, this is where the French Revolution... Well, this was an important place in the French Revolution. Apparently, this is where they dragged out certain people and put them to the guillotine, right? So historically, you know, when it comes to being anti-government or anti-authority, Concord is the place to go, yeah? So, just to recap, I'll do a little picture here. Change to red. So they start here, they walk down this road here, and they end up here. We're talking 3 hours plus for them to gather here, very slow walk here, and it ends up the end of the day here. That's what happens. But that didn't happen this time. Things went a bit different, and I'll explain why. But anyone, you know, if you know someone who lives in Paris, go and talk to them. They'll confirm this, yeah, because in Paris and people, you know, marching down the street in protest or whatever, it's like a daily occurrence. It's like another day in the office for the Parisians. I'm pretty sure every weekend these guys are marching about something. But yeah, let's look at some footage from Bastille, and then we'll come back to the map in a minute. So this is my footage, by the way. Yeah, this is filmed by me. I got this week when I was over in Paris. They, you know, YouTube threw me off and Twitter threw me off. So I did set up like a secondary YouTube channel. I think it's called Lez LuTHOR XX. And I uploaded all of this footage. So if you want to go check it out, you know, the full 20 minutes long bits of footage, and loads of, basically, I think there's about 2 hours, 3 hours worth of crucial footage is all up there. But anyway, yeah, this is, as you can see, we're getting close to Bastille now, and this is where people meet up. You got the vans with the speakers and balloons. You got the organisers. It's just a genuine organised union protest, yeah, march through Paris. Yeah, they've all got their high visors on because I think they're colour-coded for different unions. I think one union was like, you know, people that work for the government. The other one's like a union that works for education. And they're all basically protesting, yeah, the pension reforms. Basically, I think they moved the pension age back, so people had to work an extra 5 years now. And, yeah, man, and this is it. But, you know, it's in France, very well organised. They've got these balloon van things here. And once again, like, for me, I find it very interesting that the government is basically in control of the event management side of things. Like, the government has arranged all of this. So it's a bit of a contradiction, I think, when people say they're going to march against the government, yet the government is essentially organising the whole thing. Now, some people at the time, the alternative media, yeah, the truthers, the conspiracy theorists, they were claiming it was 9 million people were here. I don't know about 9 million. That kind of sounds ridiculous to me, but who knows? It's very hard to do a head count. Yeah, I just don't know. There was a lot of people here, for sure, but 9 million? There's a dog with balloons on. But it's just essentially a day out, yeah, a jolly. Let me turn the sound back on so you can hear. So yeah, this goes on for a good couple of hours because they're essentially like sorting their shit out, right? Who's going to be holding the speakerphone? Who's going to be banging the drums? Who's going to be leading them with chants? Yeah, and the songs. All that kind of stuff. And then they head on, right? What else is there to say about this? But as you can see, they're all kind of middle-aged, well-behaved people. So this idea that they're later on in the day, they're going to start rioting with the police is just absolute bullshit. Turn the sound back on. Fast forward it a little bit. Speakers. Now, like, straight away, the fact that most of them are kind of wearing their colour-coded things, you know, as if we're led to believe that what they then suddenly take off all of their high-vis jackets, stuff them in their back pocket, and then suddenly pull out black masks and black hoodie stuff and gloves and start fighting with the police. It's ridiculous. So the rioting, and there's Bastille in the background. Yeah. You know, the landmark of Bastille. Turn the sound back on. So there you essentially have MCs, yeah, masters of the ceremony, the hype men and women that get the crowd chanting and stuff, yeah, very well organized. So I'm sure you get the point. The actual protest itself was very peaceful and well organized, and was en route to be what it was, from Bastille to Concorde. So here we are. I've fast forwarded a bit here. I don't want this video to drag on too long. So here's the police at the front of the parade. They are clearing the path for the march, for the demonstration. So it's very obvious that the police and the event organisers are on the same side. They're working together, yeah? Yeah, this idea that the protesters are fighting the police is not true. So that's it, yeah. They're basically marching ahead of the protest, clearing the path, making sure there's no cars or anything. Here's some, furthermore up here, some police. Just letting everyone know there's a parade coming and making sure there's no cars or anyone getting in the way, yeah? So I just went well ahead and got ahead of the whole thing. I'd seen as much as I needed to see in regards to the protest. I now just wanted to just, I want to just get well ahead and basically pitch up a good spot down by Concorde, because I thought, if there is going to be any action, it's going to be near Concorde, yeah? So let's fast forward again. Yeah, at this point, I'm well ahead of the demonstration. I'm right at the front now. Yeah, you can recognize this street in Paris, if you know Paris, that is. At this point, like, my batteries are starting to die on my action camera because I've been filming for like 3 hours straight now. So I also needed a piss. I needed to grab some lunch. So I just went well ahead, yeah, of the march. Let me fast forward a bit. Now, weirdly here, at this place here, I think it's called BHV Maurice, and this is quite a well-known building as well. I started to see loads of the police vans amassing, yeah? And you've got to remember, the whole city has been shut off in certain places. That means the police can move wherever they want. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. We've got this whole convoy of police vans as far as I can see. Let's turn on the sound. I forget which building this is over here on the left. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I thought, wow, that's a lot of vans heading up towards Concord. Yeah? So I'm now rushing way ahead, yeah? So let's go back to the map. So back to the map, yeah? This is where they started. This is where they were heading. I left them around here and went well ahead, yeah? So I needed to recharge my batteries and stuff. So yeah, I jumped ahead and I ended up sitting in a cafe or bar or whatever what the fuck it was around here. And I thought I'll get myself a beer and just recharge all of my batteries, right? And I thought, you know, all I got to do is just head back down here and watch all of the theatrics around Concord. But then as I'm sitting there, I start to see police vehicles shooting past heading this way. Yeah? So back to the map. Yeah, I'm over here having a beer, charging my batteries, and I'm watching them all race past me here. Yeah, not just police vans, there was also the guys on motorbikes. Also fire engines and ambulances. Yeah, this is how you would sneak the Ghost Legion, the League of Shadows, in. Yeah, you would hide them within the regular national police and regional police vehicles because there's so many of them. How do you know when there's like over like 1,000 minibus sized vans and also like 100 those mini little firefighter vans? How do you know which one is full of genuine national police and regional police and which one is Operation Gladio troops moving in? But the big thing was like, so the protest is happening down here. Why are they all rushing this way? That was the thing that was on my mind, right? Now, I know now looking back what had happened. Probably best to take a picture again. That big convoy of police vehicles I showed you earlier, they had essentially stopped the main protest, which I'm going to do in blue, coming here. So they stopped them here and go back to red, whilst other ordinary police were ordered to come up here and I guess come down here and shut off this whole area here, right? So all the key roads were blocked off and no one was like around here other than genuine tourists and Parisians trying to like do their own thing. Now, when I'm going to be yellow. When I followed the flashing lights and came across all these barriers, yeah, I could also hear the fireworks going off in the background. This was, of course, the theatrics happening within inside this area here, this zone, this illusion zone, right? So here we are. This is just regular, I guess most of these are regular tourists and locals. We've all been, held back and diverted from that area. These guys are all flying in. Now, there's something doesn't add up here, right? Why is the police facing away from where supposedly all of the bullshit is happening? Now, in my opinion, these guys running in here, once again, Operation Gladio, actors. Now, you've got to remember, all throughout this time, I can hear the boom, 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 these fireworks going off. Yeah? And that of course, was the video I showed you at the beginning. Yeah? The fake and phony fighting that was happening in the beginning. So these guys, their main job, like the regular police that probably don't know, that are just following orders, they don't know that they're holding us back from a film set, their job is just to shut off this road and keep us away, right? Because if this was real, if there was real, genuine, dangerous protesters that side, the police wouldn't have their backs to them, would they? If you know what I'm saying. So all these guys here flying in, yeah, I'm very suspicious of them. They're either they're useful idiots that are unknowingly partaking in the theatre, but those ones you just saw running in earlier on, I believe that they took part in the theatrics. So back to the map. Like I said, they'd shut off all around here. Yeah, the regular demonstration, march, protest was happening on this road here. I was sat over here having a beer and recharging my batteries. They all went running in and they shut off here. So I'm probably going to have to go back to using the pens for this one. So here we go. So we use red, yeah? So they shut off around here. They also shut off many roads around here, like this, yeah? So I'm going to do this in blue, regular protesters were stopped roughly around here, I'd say. And I'm going to use green. We'll use that kind of green. In this circle here, regular people, yeah, we're talking tourists and, of course, local Parisians were now trapped, yeah? They couldn't get home. They were trapped in all of this shit here. So they'd go down one road, the police had blocked it off. They'd get bounced back to another road, the police had blocked it off. And I'm sure there was a way out, but basically what this was doing was deliberately, this is all part of the engineered event, it was making a mass build-up of people inside circle number 2. Yeah? And this is what we call human trafficking, yeah? So the fact you've forced regular folks that have got nothing to do with the marches or protests to now be locked in this event and not be able to get out, and you're compressing them in, you're bottlenecking them, you're causing a huge buildup of people, yeah? This is what I call the real human trafficking. This happens all the time, yeah? I think this is one of the things that people miss when they're looking at a world stage event, is that a big part of it is forcing the masses to participate. So, of course, once they start seeing roads shut off and all the flashing lights, they think, fuck this, we better get home, back to our hotel or back to where we live. So they're desperately trying to get home, and they're getting a little bit stressed, and they're all stuck inside of this, yeah? And of course, the regular protesters, the marchers, demonstration, they've been shut off, and I think they've been diverted or just held back for a second, I think. And then I think after about 2 or 3 hours, they opened this up and allowed them to go in, but also diverted them everywhere else. But this whole forcing people to be trapped inside a certain area and compressing them and bottlenecking them and making there a build-up of people, this is what I call the real human trafficking. Yeah? And like I said, a lot of the police, or if we was in a war zone, the military, they're not in on the whole grand event and deception. They're just doing what they're told. Yeah? That's what I want people to understand, that regular police, regular military, regular firefighters, they're not in on it. In fact, they're just unknowingly very useful idiots that help in the real human trafficking. So then, while you have regular folks trapped inside this area here, you then got Operation Gladio guys running around setting lights to those big piles of cardboard and rubbish bins that are on every street corner. Yeah, if you remember back to the first video, I was saying how conveniently the rubbish men, the bin men, the trash men, as you say in America, happen to be on strike, meaning that every street corner had a pile of cardboard, recyclables, and a pile of rubbish. No different than in the BLM riots when there was a pallet of bricks conveniently just placed on every street corner for people to throw. Yeah, so the Gladio guys would run around setting light quickly to all of as many piles of rubbish as they can. And then, of course, someone somewhere, the operational director of Paris, will then call in the fire brigade to go and check it out. So that now means, think about this, that now means you've got huge amounts of people being compressed in an area, and then you've got fire engines getting told to go into that area, now having to battle their way through big crowds of people. Yeah? And this is what we call fully immersive 4D theatre. Let's have a look at some videos. Here we go. This is quite a good video, one of mine, of course. So as you can see, the amount of people now is building up. Yeah, it's getting very busy because people can't just take their normal route home. Yeah. Real human trafficking. I've turned the sound off because in a lot of these videos, I'm actually doing live commentary. So you don't have to hear my voice twice. I've turned the sound off, but I'm sure you can imagine the sounds of the crowd of people, and then the fire engine then having to battle its way through, like so. So when someone like me comes along and says, yeah, this whole situation in Paris is being engineered, you're going to have these people that were on the streets go, no, it's definitely real. I remember being taking 3 hours to get home. I remember the fire engines. And of course, they're all going to film it for social media, aren't they? This is what I mean by fully immersive 4D theatre. This is pretty real for them, right? For these people, it's real. They really are struggling to get home. They really are getting stressed out. They really are in a big crowd of people. And they really are seeing fire engines battle their way through crowds. But as you just seen, that fire engine just came down this road. Yeah, so it battled its way through this group of people. And there you've got the police have obviously shut that road off. That's the main inner circle where a lot of the theatricality is happening. But now you've got a fire engine now coming back down the road where one just went from. So clearly there's no kind of directive for these fire engines other than to drive through certain roads and look out for bins that are on fire, yeah? I turn the sound off because I'm talking. Hang on, let's see what I'm saying. Literally just driving through a crowd of regular spectators, making a scene for no reason. They're not going anywhere. They're not attending any fires. And I've still yet to see any genuine fighting or rioting. So that's there why I turn off the sound, because it might be quite confusing hearing my current voice now 2 years later and then my voice at the time doing the live recordings. You've got to remember, a lot of the pieces came together after I got back and I processed it, and, you know, I got to look at some maps overhead and so on. So I'm not going to bore you to death with endless videos that I have of fire engines and ambulances aimlessly just driving around through the crowds of people that have been trafficked into being there. I'm sure you get the point, yeah? Operation Gladio guys run ahead, burn the cardboard. Another Operation Gladio guy comes around later on and puts it out. But nevertheless, this gives an excuse to have fire engine people and ambulance guys going through crowds of people. Now, I never saw any rioting, and I never saw the fire brigade actually get out of the fire engines to go and put out the fire. But that's what I did see. Let me show you this video here. Hang on one sec. So here we are. Let's check out this video quickly. I'm going to slow it right down. Yeah, because this all happens very quickly. So here we have one of the many little fires in that zone. I've got plenty of videos of these fires, but we'll look at this one. And you'll see in a second that a guy dressed in all black, there he is with his hood up, comes along and he's got a fire extinguisher and he puts out that fire. In my opinion, that right there is an Operation Gladio foot soldier who has been tasked with going around after the original guys who go around with the box of matches and lighters setting it alight. These guys come along after and put it out. They put out the fire after it's gone on for a couple of minutes, yeah? At the end of the day, this is fully immersive 4D theatre. Need the fires to go on that long, yeah? So the first wave of Operation Gladio guys, you only need about 10 of them, run around with a box of matches and some lighters. They set alight the piles of cardboard and piles of rubbish. Then the next wave of Operation Gladio guys comes after and puts it out. Because, you know, come on, let's be honest. Like, there's members of the public just walking around with fire extinguishers tucked away in their pants. It's ridiculous. Yeah? He comes along, he's all dressed in black with his hood up. No hesitation, runs over, puts that fire out and just carries on walking on. So, you have Operation Gladio guys are running around on the streets who have the job of setting alight to the piles of rubbish and cardboard. You have a second wave of Operation Gladio foot soldiers who are there to then put it out. Yeah? You've got to remember, the hidden hand is not in the business of hurting people. Yeah? This is fully immersive 4D theatre. You just need a fire going for about 10 minutes. You put it out, then it's a sizzling pile of smoke, isn't it? Giving people a real immersive experience. Smoke and mirrors. This is the most important thing. You've probably heard me talk about this a lot if you're someone who looks at my work often. Yeah. So in regards to the fire on the street, the main thing is that people experience it and they process it as real. Of course, the riots in France were real. Look, here is a photo of me next to the fire. So you've got some young'uns here. You can clearly see, I don't want to stereotype, but they look like university lefty types. But of course, they are now posing next to the fire. Yeah, and this will all be posted on social media, right? This is the TikTok war. And this is what I mean when I talk about smoke and mirrors, yeah? Here's the smoke. And the smartphone devices are the black mirrors. Yeah, this is the modern day smoke and mirrors. So these guys, you know, who have been brainwashed, these young guys, even like this guy's older, you know, these modern humans that have been brainwashed into thinking the be all and end all is social media and getting likes and shares and having a video go viral, they will naturally want to take selfies next to the smoky bin, the bin on fire, right? But this obviously helps the hidden hand push out the fiction out into the, you know, out into the universe, right? So this is what we talk about with smoke and mirrors. You're watching it in full effect here. You know? So it's going to be, like I said, of course the riots in Paris were real. Look, here's my auntie. Here's my auntie's social media. She was right there next to the fires. Of course it was real. When, like I said, all it was, what, we're talking, you know, if we had to take a guess, what, 10? Less than 10, maybe 5 Operation Gladio guys just running free through the streets of Paris, burning the bins that are there because they've engineered a bin strike, the rubbish men, the trash men to be on strike at the same time that there's civil unrest. Smoke and mirrors, fully immersive 4D theatre, human trafficking. Yeah, you should get what I'm talking about now, right? I mean, I'm probably doing a very terrible job of explaining it, but hopefully you roughly get the idea of how these world stage theatre events are engineered, yeah? It's not just about the theatrical deception with actors. It's then having an element where regular folks are forced into participation or they're forced into certain zones. I would call this whole area now, at this point, a live action film set. And of course, these guys don't know that they are acting and participating within the live action film set. Okay. So it's like a travelling circus, you know, it's moving forward. And of course, we're not allowed to go in between and see what's happening there. Whoa. You gonna go or not? So what's interesting is most of us here are just curious spectators, or you've got the TikTok army, you know, going out for the likes and views type footage. More boom booms from the centre of the movie set that we're not allowed to go on. I'm guessing these piles of trash were on fire at some point over the last 2 hours. The props, man. This, you know, like in Ukraine, the prop was the burnt out tank. The prop here was the big pile of trash that was purposely placed around everywhere, or allowed to be built up like that so that they could, you know, go around and burn it. So at this point, I've now worked out where the epicenter is, yeah? Where all the booms and bangs were coming from. The boom boom and the bang bangs. Does that building look familiar? With that scaffolding there? Yeah? Obviously, at this point at night, it's really dark and everything's starting to wind down. At this point, they've started to like open up certain areas and let the people kind of get their asses home. But they've still got a blockade around this building here. Of course, still a bit of theatricality. Of course, I still haven't seen any form of rioting whatsoever. Not a single brick or stone has been thrown. No clashes with the police whatsoever here. On my side of the line anyway, but the line is here. This was the centre, yeah? Now it took me, you got to remember, when I was there on the ground, I hadn't worked any of this out. It's only afterwards that I looked at maps and stuff, but it was only from being ping-pong from one closed-off road to another and constantly like basically doing a circle and then checking my maps, I realised that this was the centre here. Yeah, if you remember when I draw the map, there was the inner circle and the outer circle. This was the centre. And, well, naturally, I went there the next day and checked it out, right? Now that I went there the next day, now that the police had gone. So here we have the aftermath of yesterday's staged events. I mean, really, not that much of a big deal. But anyway. Here's where it gets real funny. And I didn't realise this last night. So I'm now in what was the movie zone, movie set, film set, illusion zone, whatever you want to call it, where we wasn't allowed, us, you know, regular members of the public weren't allowed to come in. In my video, I was over there somewhere, shut off, like most of us were. Most of us regular, everyday people were not allowed here. This is where it's all happening. Still got a bit of glass there. But yeah, what I didn't realise is that's the Opera House. That's right, everyone. It happened right in front of the Opera House. Can you fucking believe it? I just didn't notice at the time. I was too busy filming. But it was happening right in front of the Opera House. You just seriously can't make this shit up. So I'm going to go back to the original place I was filming at night time and show you it again in daylight. This is the Opera House. So anyone could go and check on, you know, on Google Maps or whatever. You'll see these iconic kind of gold Greco-Roman statues. I don't know who that's meant to be. But yeah, that is the Opera House. So here we are, this is the next day, the next morning. I'm now going on to the area which was shut off from all of us. Yeah. This all should look very familiar. So over there in the distance, that building with scaffolding and the two gold, like Greco-Roman statues. I don't know who they are. But yeah, man, this was it. This is the Opera House. This is where it all took place, yeah? How in your face is it that they did it in front of the Opera House, yeah? The National Opera House of Paris of France. There's that building, LuTHOR or whatever it's called. I'll fast forward it a bit here. As you can see up there, the train station right opposite the opera is called Opera. Yeah, if you want to go and have a look for yourselves. So this is where it all began for me. This is when I started to realise, oh my God, when it comes to world stage theatre, they love doing it in front of opera houses. Yeah, there's the building, Lance, and there's that kiosk. If you remember at the beginning of the video, I said, keep this shop, Lance, in mind, and this little kiosk here. And then, of course, the scaffolding. Go back to the map, this should be the final time, and we zoom in to the opera house, which is here. Don't know if you can see there, but that was all covered in scaffolding. That's where the kiosk was. That's the two golden Greco-Roman statues. That's the train station there. The opera underground station. But of course, you know, what I see there is, we'll take a screenshot, is an X and an X. So all ties into the stuff I've been talking about, yeah? This is where the whole thing of the opera came into it for me, yeah? This is where the big synchronicity happened. Like, I was like, fuck, man, they're doing their live action theatre right in front of an opera, like so in your face. And yet to me, you know, you guys are free to choose to believe whatever you want to believe. But for me, yet again, it's more proof that the hidden hand has a sense of humour and that we live in a false reality, right? The fact that the theatricality is happening in front of an opera house, you know, it doesn't get more funny than that, yeah? Right, that's it for this video. That's been about an hour, best part of an hour. Sick of the sound of my own voice by now. You know, you've got to put on your, what we call a telephone voice, isn't it? When you're doing a recording, trying to sound as clear as you can so everyone from around the world can understand you. So yeah, that's it. We live in a twilight world. There are no friends at dusk.